let's just see that this. Yeah, looks good, looks good. Okay, good. I think we're live. I'm just going to share in a couple of groups so that people can watch with us. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, so we're live on Facebook. Today I have the privilege of interviewing someone who really honestly touched my heart a few years ago when I watched his episode on Voices for Humanity on Scientology TV. He is literally the most passionate drug educator, as far as I'm aware, on the planet. He speaks like no other. He's got a special voice that he's putting to good work. He's in the last, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm just going to read out the statistics. He's lectured to more than 10 million children in schools about the truth about drugs. And in the last 5 years, he has gotten out, let me check this, over 7 million booklets educating children about the truth about drugs. He is a true humanitarian in every sense, and today he's going to be sharing a little bit about his story. Michael, why don't we just start by letting everyone know who you are and how you're doing on this lockdown and quarantine.
All right, well, hello world. Coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, and it's midday here, so wherever you're watching, I hope that you are inspired. Really, it's my mission to inspire other people. I hate when people look at a problem and say, someone should do something about that. But aren't you someone? I decided I was going to be someone and not talk about making change, but go out and make that change. And I don't like what's happening in our country, in the UK, across the world, with drugs, with addiction, with suicide, with incarceration. And we really, really need to step up. And so I decided that I was going to step up. And about 13 years ago, I walked out of the prison and where I spent 12 years of my life as a result of drug addiction and tragedy unfolded in my family. And I was the cause for the death of my own mother. I brought chaos and havoc into her life, and the person who believed in me the most lost her life because of my gang involvement and my criminal activity. So when I got out of prison in 2007, I said, I have to make sure kids don't grow up to be me. I have to make sure that, people don't follow in my footsteps, and I got to stop that revolving door. And I got to prevent kids from getting started with drugs. In the UK, in the US, all across our world, we have a drug pandemic, and we're not going to solve it. People say, well, that's kind of pessimistic. Why would you waste your time then if we can't solve it? We can't solve what's going on, but we can stop it from happening. And the only way we're going to solve it is to stop it from happening in the first place. We've got to get to kids. We've got to educate kids. So I'm in my 13th year. I'm a little over 10 million audience members. I've spoken in every state in America multiple times. And I found, drug-free world. I found the educational answer, the booklets that could continue the education. So all of these booklets that I use, I hand out these booklets to kids, and they take the booklets home and they read them. They read them and they study them. They message us, they write us, they send us letters, and we're educating them about drugs. What I do with our nonprofit organization, Steered Straight, is we impact the kids, we impact the school, we impact the parents and the educators and the community, the faith-based, the business community. We have a program for every facet of the community, specifically educating them in a unique way. And then we provide drug-free world booklets to continue that education to kids, the parents, the communities all over the country. A lot of people think that they know about drugs, but I probably know more about drugs than almost anybody I ever met in my life. I put more drugs in my body than anybody I ever met in my life. I died 6 times. 6 times I was pronounced dead.
What do you mean you were pronounced dead 6 times? Like literally?
Yeah, once was in a car accident. I had no pulse for 6.5 minutes. A state trooper, a police officer, gave me CPR until paramedics arrived. 6.5 minutes, I was unconscious with no pulse. He gave me CPR, kept my heart going, and then they brought me back to life. Then I died in the hospital. They brought me back a second time. Then I died in the trauma center. They brought me back a third time. And then I went off to prison. And then I came home from prison after 5 years, and I overdosed on heroin 3 additional times. Put in an ambulance and had CPR done on the way to the hospital. And all 3 times in the hospital, they shot me up to get me, reversed on an overdose with a drug called naloxone. And all 3 times I overdosed and was brought back from the dead, I went out and shot heroin that very night. So insanity.
To give people context about where your like endless passion for this subject comes from, where did it all start? Like you mentioned, you've taken more drugs than anyone else you know. Like where did the drug problem start for you? And what's the kind of, I know that you shared some of your personal stories on the Scientology TV episode. Where did it all start? What did that take you through in the early days?
So I was 11 years of age when I was struggling with some things in my life. My parents were divorced, total chaos and havoc in my life. My world was turned upside down. I love my mother and I love my father, and they didn't love each other anymore, so they got divorced. And I didn't handle it, and the people around me didn't handle it. I always say I had 2 amazing parents, but they were lousy divorce parents, horrible divorce parents. But I mean, no one teaches a couple how to be divorced parents. That's not the objective. You're supposed to stay married forever, right? Well, I just had a lot of problems, and to get, counseling, my mother took me to our Catholic church, to my priest who sexually molested me for 3 years, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, sexually abused by a pedophile priest. And then I had these 2 well-meaning Irish uncles who wanted to make sure I grew up to be a man. And so they beat the living hell out of me for all 4 years of high school. Because they thought beating me into manhood was the way to raise me. They didn't want me to grow up a certain kind of way. I mean, I was abused by a man, so God forbid that I grew up to be, homosexual. That would have been unacceptable, right? And I try not to judge them too much. This was the 70s, so, it was a different world. I hate when people judge the past by the standards of today. It's just, we can't do that.
Yeah, totally out of context. You can't.
I wish they didn't beat me for 4 years straight,
Yeah.
But they did. And so, but at the age of 11, I was really struggling with the abuse, with the sexual abuse. And a friend of mine, a kid who was 3 years older than me, he handed me a pack of cigarettes. And he said, this will help you with your stress. So at the age of 11, I started smoking cigarettes. And it wasn't experimenting. I was addicted to the cigarette with the very first puff. And then they introduced me to alcohol at the age of 11. And I was an alcoholic at the age of 11. I didn't experiment. It wasn't trying it out. I was addicted to alcohol from the very first time I drank it. And then—
would you say like cigarettes for you were the gateway drug?
Yeah, nicotine was the gateway drug, and it's 90% of all addicts in the world. Nicotine is the gateway drug. Nicotine is the first. Wow. Alcohol is the second. And then that following year, at the age of 12, they introduced me to the third gateway drug, which is marijuana.
Yeah.
Alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana, that's 90% of addiction globally. So here I was with my developing adolescent brain, stimulating it with nicotine, depressing it with alcohol, and hallucinating it with marijuana. So I was popping pills by 14. I was using cocaine at 15, heroin at 16, methamphetamine at 18, a full-blown garbage pail junkie all throughout my teenage years. And, failing school. But the only thing I did well was sports, wrestling. So because I was a champion wrestler, everybody kind of just ignored the chaos in my life. But addiction was unfolding, and I became a full-blown addict by the age of 18, addicted to everything. People used to say, what was your drug of choice? And my drug of choice was more. Whatever drug you have, let's just get high. And, it destroyed my life. So trauma, adverse childhood experiences, a child of a divorced family, sexually abused 3 years by a priest, physically abused by 2 relatives, no understanding of intimacy, no understanding, no ethics, forget it. Ethics, I didn't know what that was. No morals, and I had no relationship with God because, where was God while I was going through all this stuff? Now I know he was right there carrying me through this whole thing. He held me and he created me. The story of my life is that footprints poem, where there's 2 sets of footprints and then there's one, and you ask God, where were you? Look, one set, he said, son, I was carrying you, But in my set of footprints, there's also there's one set of footprints with 2 lines in the sand right next to it. That's where God dragged me, and then he carried me, right? And then he put me down and I walked with him. My entire life, the addiction began at the age of 11, so.
Did you know while you were going through, like from 11 into your teenage or early 20s, did you know while you were going through it that it wasn't right? Or was it just that it was the only solution that you could find to your depression, to your struggles?
Right, and solution's a funny word because it wasn't a solution at all. But in theory, it was a solution, right? And that's what kids do and young adults do. They self-medicate. They don't want to feel what they're feeling, so they don't have to feel when they're high, right? And so drugs aren't the problem. Drugs are the symptom of the underlying problem 90% of the time. So I wasn't educated about drugs. I mean, if I had drug-free world booklets when I was a kid, I would have read the marijuana booklet, would have read the alcohol booklet. If I saw the videos on Truth About Drugs from Drug Free World Foundation, I would have watched them. They're very engaging, they're in your face. They're people who have done that. The reason I'm so successful with kids and why they listen to me is because I'm not giving them something out of a book. I'm not standing before them telling them about what I learned in a social work class or an addiction class. And I lived it. It doesn't get more harsh than my story. I destroyed lives, my own, my mother's, my wife's. I'm married to this gorgeous redhead. Oh my God. God made the world in 7 days. Like he took an extra week to make my wife. Wait,
hang on. So this is while you're a drug addict, you managed to find this wonderful woman and get married?
Yeah. Yeah. And all through my 20s and 30s, we've been together 27 and a half years.
You're still together now?
Yeah, she went through all 12 years of prison with me. All 12 years of prison. Yeah.
That woman deserves a medal. That is impressive.
I'll give her a medal, all right. She's a pain in my neck, but I wouldn't trade her for all the women in the world, man. I destroyed her life, our 2 children. We were at one point homeless on the street, shooting drugs. It was unfathomable what happened, how it could have possibly happened. But if you look back on my childhood, it's textbook. It's textbook for everything that happened to me.
And things got worse after the age of 18? Like you've gotten heavy from 11, 12 up until 18. Things got worse from there?
Yeah, all my deaths happened in my early 20s, 3 of my deaths happened in my early 20s. 3 of my deaths happened in my late 20s. But 12 years in prison, I got involved in criminal activity. I got involved in gang activity, and it was chaotic. And for a 5-week, my wife and I have been together for 27 and a half years. obviously we were apart while I was in prison, right? But she never missed a visit. She came every single weekend to visit me in prison. Like, look at his face. I mean, I'm not Brad Pitt or nothing. What are you visiting me for? But she never missed a visit. She came every single weekend. But for 5 weeks before I ended up going to prison, she had enough. She took our daughter and got in the car and left. She left me a note. She said, I can't take it anymore. She said, I love you, and I know you're going to choose me over your drugs. That would have been a good idea, choosing her over drugs, Couldn't choose anything over drugs. If I had to choose air or drugs, I would have been a suffocating drug addict, you know what I mean? I wouldn't choose air over drugs. This woman left a note on the table. She's my soulmate, the most important being in my world, and she walks out the door and says, give up your drugs and follow me. But I just got deeper into drugs, and I was so involved in criminal activity. I was dealing massive weight of drugs, involved in a gang in New Jersey, and I put a drug deal.
New Jersey's pretty rough, right? I get the idea that New Jersey's got a bit of a rough edge.
Right. It's like if you ever watched the series The Sopranos, it's like that on steroids times 10, because it was all street stuff, and murders, and it was a violent time. Drugs were a massive, massive problem, and I was in the mix of all of it, risking my life every single day. But I was a drug addict at the same time, so I wasn't really thinking about life. And I ended up, when my wife walked out on me, I ended up homeless, living in my car, and I decided that I was going to reach out to the only resource I had left, which was my mother. My 63-year-old mother had just retired as a nurse and moved into a smaller condo apartment, 2-bedroom apartment. So I called up my mom and asked her if I could come stay with her for a little while till I got on my feet. And she let me come stay with her. She's my biggest cheerleader, the most important woman, brought me into this world. So she never turned her back on me, but I was a full-blown drug addict. And she asked me if I was still on drugs. I said, oh, no, Ma, I gave up drugs long ago, I was high when she asked me the question. So 5 weeks after moving into my mother's condo apartment, I had put a drug deal together that went horribly wrong, and some people got shot. And I was responsible because I orchestrated the whole thing. So they put a hit out on me, and 2 people came to find me, and I was off on a drug binge, and they strangled and murdered my 63-year-old mother on May 13th, 1995. Which happens to be Mother's Day. My mother was strangled and murdered on Mother's Day morning. And I came home Mother's Day morning after a 3-day drug binge to find my 63-year-old mother strangled and killed in her bedroom.
Oh, that is like almost impossible to hear even now.
So I caused the death of my own mother. They came looking for me, and instead of finding me, they found her and they took her life. So, what happens is you call the police. I called 911. They were there in 3 minutes, and they realized what was going on, and they took her away. And that night we found out how she died, and the police started questioning everybody and asked me to go in for questioning, and I did. And I was trying to tell them, I think I know what this is all about. But a cop found a duffel bag in my room with about 60 heroin needles, an ounce of meth, and some crack pipes and cocaine. And they looked at me and they told me to take my shirt off. And I had abscesses up my neck and my arms. I was a 105-pound junkie. And they just looked at me and they said, what'd you do, kill her? And instead of investigating the case, everything turned on that point, and they built a case because they were convinced I must have strangled and murdered my own mother. And 3 judges denied arrest warrants. They wanted to arrest me and charge me with the murder of my own mother, the most important woman in the world. I never put my hands on another human being in my life. I have no violence in my history, nothing. The most important woman in the world, no motive. Why would I kill the most important person in my life? But they just thought I was in some sort of drug rage, and I strangled and killed her. So they got me arrested and they put me in jail. And 2 years later, I passed 3 lie detector tests, 3 polygraph exams I passed, and they offered me 5 years. They said, we'll just let
If you
this all
plead
go
guilty,
in.
5 years if you plead guilty
Yeah,
to
5 years.
manslaughter.
I was facing 30 to life. I had 2 years in. They had here 5 years, and you'll walk out of the prison door in 6 months, and you'll be in community release at halfway house. If you go to trial and you lose, you'll get 30 to life. You'll die in prison. If you sign this piece of paper right here, you'll be in a halfway house in 6 months, and you'll be home from prison in 3 years, because I had 2 years in. The deal was 5 years. So my wife was hanging in there. I wanted to see my kids again. I didn't want to play Russian roulette with the rest of my life. And they had a piece of paper sitting in front of me that if I signed it, I had my freedom in 3 years. So I signed it. I'm responsible for my mother's death. I mean, I'm responsible. I might as well have done it with my own 2 hands. I caused it. But I couldn't take a chance losing the rest of my life to go to prison. And so I signed the deal. And I went off to prison. It took 10 months to get to a halfway house, not 6, but I was home from prison in 3 years. And within 10 months, I was in a violent car accident. I broke 3 cervical vertebrae in my neck in this car accident. And the emergency room doctor handed me and my wife a bottle of 360, 80 milligram OxyContin.
What's that? Is that like a heavy painkiller?
Heroin in a pill.
But
And they
medical heroin.
Medical heroin, and they gave me almost 400 of them.
And
So
had you when you come out of prison until that accident, were you clean off drugs for that time period?
5 years and 10 months, I was completely clean off drugs and alcohol. 5 years in prison and 10 months home, no drugs, no alcohol in my body whatsoever. I break my neck in a car accident. I'm in traction. I need neck surgery, and they hand me 7 medications, and one of those medications was heroin in a pill. 80 milligram OxyContin. The bottle had 360 of them. I ate them in 1 week. And you know what they did? They gave me another bottle. So I was a full-blown prescription, a painkiller addict. Within 2 weeks, I traded it all in for heroin and cocaine. I was back on the streets again with a neck brace on this time, shooting heroin and meth all over again. And they locked me up and sent me back to prison. And I did 7 more years. 7 more years.
They locked you up for what? For drug possession, drug dealing?
The deal that I got with the 5 years, when they let me out after 5 years,
Behavior.
they gave me 5 years probation. So they added 5 years probation to let me go free. All I had to do was stay out of trouble for 5 years. Well, I couldn't do it. And so they were so appalled that I took an offer like that, a deal like that, and I failed. They were so appalled. They took that original 20-year sentence and they gave it right back to me. So they sent me off to prison for 20-year sentence. And I did 7 more years of that 20-year sentence. So 12 years total time. And then I was on parole for 3 years. So I took a 5-year gift and I basically turned it into a 12-year nightmare with 3 additional years on parole.
What I don't understand, right? And I'm sure that this is not just an overnight thing, but the fact that you even can talk about these things, and although I'm sure you have regret and remorse to some degree, but how you were like doing what you're doing now and operating at such a high level and giving back so much despite what you've been through is like, how do you move on from a past like that? I know maybe it brings us to later in the story, but it's just amazing.
So when I walked out of prison for good in 2007, it was a real surreal day, beautiful blue sky, scattered clouds, right? My wife was at the prison door to pick me up. She waited all that time. 5 years, I came home, got back on drugs. She waited 7 more years, right? I'm telling you, I don't deserve this girl. And she's smoking hot. I don't deserve her anyway. Like, I mean, look at this face, right? So she's waiting at the prison door for me when I get out of prison, right? And so it's about a mile road down to the main highway from the prison. And I get in the car. My license is long expired, so she's driving us home, right? So I'm sitting in the passenger seat, windows down, beautiful day, scattered clouds, blue sky. And we're driving down the main road. And I look in the side view mirror, right, from the passenger seat, and I see my face. And then right behind me, behind the car, is the prison, the guard tower, the barbed wire. Beautiful day ahead, blue sky, scattered clouds. The sky over the prison was dark and cloudy. It was surreal. I'm looking ahead at my future and I'm looking back in the side view mirror at my past. And I look in the mirror and I was like, man, never again, man. I'm never going back. I even gave the mirror the finger, like, ah. And my wife is like, who you talking to? And I'm like, I'm talking to the mirror, man. I'm putting it in my past. And then God directs my eyes to the words, objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Woo!
Wow.
It's like, whoa. I'm looking at what's behind me. And God says, hey, you see what's behind you, young man? It'll be in your windshield tomorrow if you go back and do it again.
It's amazing because just as you were describing that, I was thinking that to me sounds exactly like a spiritual or religious experience.
Yeah, it was totally spiritual. It's the eighth dynamic that I now understand, really, really showing me what was behind me needs to stay behind me. I mean, I get goosebumps and the hair stands up on my arms every time I tell this story. I was speechless. We drove about half an hour to a restaurant. My wife took me out and we got something to eat, right? And she's like, what's wrong with you? And I told her what happened. I told her. And she goes, that's God. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. That's God, right? It was me. It was God, right? It was God. Come on. You know, I mean, I'm the most broken, damaged human being on the planet. God is not reaching out to me. What could God do with me? Come on. I mean, I'm not a vessel. I'm a junkie. I'm a prison inmate. I'm an ex-convict. I'm an ex-gang member. Come on. You think God's going to use me? She goes, that's God. And he wants something for your life. You have a purpose in your life. So I said, okay, I need to talk to kids. I mean, that's what I need to do. I need to talk to kids. Forget the addicts and the prisoners. I mean, they're hopeless, man. We're not going to change. The only hope we have is reaching kids. So I got on the phone and I started calling some principals in some schools. Hey, good morning. I just got out of prison. I'd like to come talk to your children. Hello? Hello? Click, dial tone. It took a couple of years, but a very close girl, my best friend's daughter, at the age of 22, died of a heroin overdose. And it made me want to do something. So I went back to school to become a drug counselor, and I had 26 kids on my caseload, and 4 of them died within 10 days of each other of a heroin overdose. I went to my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th addiction funeral. And I sat there the night of the 5th funeral, 5 kids under the age of 23, all dead from heroin. And I said to my wife, I know what my purpose is. I know what my purpose is. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Now, I've been to 220 addiction funerals, 220. The #1 cause of death in the world, in the UK, in the US, in the world is drugs. The #1 cause of accidental death is a drug overdose. In America, the #1 cause of death under the age of 50 is drugs. We're losing an entire generation of people, but in 2012, I decided this was going to be my full-time mission. So I decided that this was going to be it. Now, since then, 5 years ago, in my 4th year of doing this, I learned all about what 4th dynamic was all about. I mean, I was doing the 4th dynamic. I didn't even know what the 4th dynamic was, right?
Yeah.
I was reaching kids. I was talking to kids. I was going to schools. And I didn't even know what really it was all about. I just knew that I wanted to do something about stopping the problem.
And when you say you went to 220 drug-related funerals, you mean
Suicides
these were children that you educated? These were children that you had some interaction with?
Yeah, well, I could have been to 2,000. I know over 2,500 people that have lost their life. Over 2,500 people that I know in states all around the country. But I've been physically to 220 people that are close to me.
Yeah.
People that I knew, that I helped try to get treatment, that I knew their parents, and I paid respects to the parents by going to the kid's funeral. 22 eulogies. I don't do eulogies anymore. I can't. I just can't do eulogies anymore. But I knew personally all these kids that died, or personally knew their families. So you know, and the problem's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. This COVID-19 is going to make the problem so much worse. Suicide, depression, anxiety medication is skyrocketing. Psych drugs are skyrocketing right now. Alcohol use is up. Suicide calls to helplines are up. Depression and anxiety is up. Overdoses is up because poverty is up. People are losing their job, their livelihood. Drunk driving accidents are skyrocketing all across the United States of America right now. If we're in a lockdown and they're supposed to be home, how could we be having more drunk driving accidents? Because liquor stores all across America were deemed essential businesses. We want to leave the liquor stores open. 12 states have legalized marijuana in America. All the marijuana dispensaries have been deemed essential businesses. So all these people lost their jobs, they're sitting at home and they're smoking weed and they're drinking. Domestic violence is drastically increased across the country. Who's sitting in the home with no structure in their life and guidance in their life, experiencing all this? Are kids. So that's why I have to get these booklets and these digital programs to these kids.
That's
I've got to
crazy.
make it.
So all these, it's funny because I was wondering that just yesterday, like, I wonder what's happened to drug and crime related statistics, but you've just answered that. Like,
I promise anybody who's listening and watching, listen, I'm not a doctor, okay? I don't even play one on TV. I don't have any medical experience or background, whatever. I know more about drugs than anybody ever met in your life. I shot more drugs than anybody ever met in your life. I spent millions of dollars on drugs. I've destroyed my life. I know trauma. I know drugs. I spent 12 years in prison. I've spent the last 12 years going into prisons to educate inmates and prisoners. I've spent 45 years experienced with using drugs, fighting drugs, consequences of drugs. I promise you, these people that are dying with COVID-19, they're not dying from COVID-19. They're dying with COVID-19. The coronavirus is not killing the amount of people that they're saying it's killing. People are dying from sepsis, from pneumonia, from heart disease, from respiratory failure, from acute respiratory distress syndrome, from COPD, from CLRD, from emphysema. They're dying with COVID. That doesn't mean they're dying from COVID.
Yeah.
It's all a lie, a lie. But the lockdown, okay, and the shutdown of I'll speak for America. The United States of America shutting the economy down like they did is going to kill 10 times as many people as will die with COVID. 10 times as many people. For every 1% increase you have in unemployment, you see a collateral 3% increase in overdoses and a 1% increase in suicides. And we've already been at a 50-year high of suicide in this country. 50-year high of suicide in America. It's gone up consistently annually for the last 2 decades. And now this virus and love Trump or hate Trump, he said we don't need the cure to be, worse than the problem. The cure is much worse than the problem.
Yeah.
So we're going to see it. You can disagree with me. You can tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. You're going to believe Dr. Fauci. Okay, I get it, right? Just wait.
How do you keep going with all of that going? Like obviously you're doing your thing, you're educating people about drugs, and you've got this mission and purpose which you're super passionate about. But when these stats like suicide and drug use and overdose keep going up, and you see what's going on in your environment, what keeps you motivated to know that you can do something about it?
Right. Well, I'll show you. Let me show you. There's 1, 2 computer, 3 computer, 4 computer. I'm on the 5th computer. I can take you in the other room. I have books and stacks of all I do is read, research. This is my reading pile for tomorrow right here. This is what I cataloged last night for about 10 hours.
It's unbelievable.
This is for next week. This is my stack for next week. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I used to be obsessed with using drugs. Now I'm obsessed with solving the problem. And this right here, I'm telling you right now, this is the best educational distribution of booklets and a curriculum in the world. In the world, it comes in multiple languages.
Tell me that story. You said, because you were doing drug education before you came across the
I had no idea.
drugs.
I had no idea about that. I was making booklets, right? I was making booklets. You know, you should see. I was putting together. I wanted to teach kids about nicotine. I wanted to teach kids about alcohol. I wanted to teach kids about marijuana. I wanted to teach kids about pills. So I was making these booklets that were engaging, because all the booklets that are distributed out there by the federal government, I mean, they're boring, they're stats. The kids don't read them. They don't identify with them. They really don't. So I was making these really engaging booklets. And in my presentation in schools, I had this big slide on the PowerPoint slide that I use, and it said, drugs are a lie, because that's what drugs are. They're a lie. So I wanted to put some videos with it, you know? I wanted to enhance my presentations with some videos. So I went to the internet and I just Googled drugs are a lie to get some ideas so I could make my own videos. And up on the screen pops this PSA from Foundation for a Drug-Free World called They Lied. And I watched it and I was like, holy cow, okay? I use another word, not cow.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is unbelievable. These people are geniuses. This is exactly what I need. So I stole it, right? I stole it and I started using it in schools all across the country. And I didn't steal it because the Foundation for a Drug-Free World would give it to anybody. That's what they do. They give it to anybody. They don't want, it's not, you don't buy this stuff. You don't have to buy these booklets. They're all given away for free. Thanks to the selfless members of the Church of Scientology and the International Association of Scientologists who funds all this stuff. It has nothing to do with religion. It's all fact-based education and information on drugs.
So the millions of booklets that you've got, I mean, how many booklets do you say? 7?
Well, so 5 years ago, I never even knew about this. 5 years ago. Now, 7 million. I just crossed 7 million booklets. 7 million.
And you haven't had to pay a penny, not even the non-profit?
No, not one penny. The Church of Scientology, members of the Church of Scientology, International Association of Scientologists, funds Foundation for a Drug-Free World. And so I've got all this out there. You know what 7 million booklets cost, right? A lot. It's cost me a ton of money. I have a nonprofit organization. It cost me a ton of money to distribute it. I didn't just send it all out in the mail. I hand delivered all of it, right? Not me, all of us at my organization, but mostly me. When I saw that video and I started using it, I met a woman in the middle of the country in Colorado who was handing out these booklets at an event that I was speaking at. And I said, what's that? She goes, it's the truth about drugs by Drug-Free World. I go, I use a video by Drug-Free World. Same organization? She goes, yeah. I said, well, what the heck are these? She goes, they're booklets. I go, booklets? Wow, unbelievable. I guess I should have looked a little further after I sold the video, because I would have learned about all that. I was using that video for almost 10 months before I ever even knew about the booklet.
Wow.
There's an educator's kit. I could bring this to schools. What do you mean it's free? You got to be kidding me. And so I started distributing these, and I got involved in Truth About Drugs and Drug-Free World. And I started meeting all sorts of people that were involved in this. And then somebody called me up and said, you're friggin' amazing. Like, you've delivered more booklets this year than anybody else in the country. We want to do a show about you. I go, a show? What do you mean? We want to follow you around, and we want to do a show about you called The Voices for Humanity. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so they literally followed me. One crew was with me for about 5 months, and then they quit and went home. And then I got a new crew, and I was like, what happened to the first crew? They got mad at me, and they said, no, they just can't hang with you. We needed to get new people because you're obsessed. Like, I only sleep 3 to 4 hours a night. I work 7 days a week. I'm up all night long. I didn't go to sleep last night at all. I slept 0 last night.
I know. You know what's funny is I woke up this morning and I was going to message you, and I saw at like 10 a.m. UK time that you were still online, or like 11 a.m. UK time. So I knew it was in the middle of the night. I was like, what's this guy doing?
I didn't sleep last night. I usually go 2 or 3 nights a month without sleeping. I just go all night long. I have to solve this problem. But now I'm involved in an organization that is solving this problem. These are not people who are saying somebody should do something about this. These are people that are doing something about this. And so after the Voices for Humanity episode was shot, and they invited me to the UK, to St. Hill, to go to this big event and learn all about what's going on. And at that moment, I wasn't a Scientologist. I mean, I like Scientology. I liked I read Dianetics a long time ago. I think Hubbard was an amazing person. To me, he was a science fiction writer and he was a Western writer. That's who he was to me. He was the youngest Boy Scout, Eagle Scout to ever live. And I was an Eagle Scout, right? I mean, he was just a fascinating human being, right? And I respect the religious beliefs of all people, right? I'm a Christian. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. But I wasn't even entertaining getting involved at all because I just didn't know, right? I just loved what they were doing, and I loved the fourth dynamic. And someone said to me, you have the highest confront of evil of anyone I've ever met in my life. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. Now I do. I have a high confront the evil, a high confronting evil, right? I'm a risk taker, and I don't take no for an answer, and you can't hurt my feelings. I mean, I went to prison after pleading guilty to the murder of my mother on Mother's Day. You think I'm afraid of anything? You think you can attack me, man? And ever since getting involved in Scientology, man, I got more haters than I ever knew in my life. I mean, my haters drink Haterade, okay? My haters drink Haterade. They just hate on me. I don't care. I got a purpose. My purpose is fourth dynamic. My purpose is impacting mankind in a positive way. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not stopping for anybody or anything. I didn't stop when I needed my drugs. I didn't stop when I needed money for drugs. And I'm not going to stop by saving people's lives. I'm dedicated to this for the rest of my life. And I already know that God's not taking me till probably 105, 110. You know what I mean? Like, got a lot to make up for. I'm gonna confront pharmaceuticals. I'm gonna confront psychiatrists. I'm gonna confront drugs and cartels. And at the same time, I'm going into prisons. Like now I just delivered 1 million Truth About Drug booklets in the last 6 months. Wow. 1 million books in 6 months. I didn't think I could do it, but now that I know I could do it, shit, I'm gonna get 2 million a year. 2 million a year. I love the story of Bannister, right? Who broke the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
No one ever broke the 4-minute mile. No one broke it until he broke it. And then people said, I guess it's possible. Yeah. So now high school kids break it. Come on. Now I know I could do 2 million drug-free world booklets a year. So going into jails and prisons, I bring drug-free world into jails and prisons too, because you would think that drug addicts know everything there is to know about drugs. Not true. Yeah. But I needed to give inmates and prisoners something more. And I found the way to happiness. 21 precepts of how to live your life. And you know what I love? Like precept 18, I mean, respect the religious belief of all people. Yeah. It's not Christian, it's not Buddhist, it's not Jews. I don't have to alienate the agnostics. I can embrace the atheists. Every prisoner and inmate in prison, 90% of every woman is a parent, 80% of every father of man is a parent. So we're affecting the incarceration. We're affecting their kids with their incarceration. We're getting that cycle. I have to break that cycle. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm on a 4D mission. You
are such an, I get tingles listening to you. I hope the people watching are as inspired as I am. As if your inspirational story is not enough, is there any kind of story that stands out to you of someone that you contacted with the Truth About Drugs campaign and that's why I love telling people this, because it's not just the drugs, it's what's underlying drugs, right? Yeah. So I have a sexual abuse story. I was raped, sodomized by a pedophile priest for 3 years, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, right? So I talk to kids about that in my story, in my presentation, and I have kids lined up. I mean, I sent you some pictures of the audiences, but I have 20, 30 kids that line up afterwards to come talk to me. And so many of those kids talk to me about sexual abuse. So 5 men have gone to prison in America for raping their daughters and 3 daughters and 2 sons, raping their kids. And the way that it was revealed was their kids came up and talked to me after an assembly. I was there to teach kids about drugs,
But in teaching them about drugs, all of them are using drugs and alcohol, or they're cutting, self-harming, and they come up to talk to me about being sexually abused, and it was going on right then. And I convinced those kids to get to the counselor that we would get law enforcement involved and we would protect them. And all 5 of those men went to prison. Dozens and dozens and dozens of other kids have gotten counseling for sexual abuse. I had a girl come up to me in a presentation, and when I go to a school, I go and bring 3 booklets. I bring this booklet because it's overall on drugs.
Yeah.
I bring this booklet because it's on marijuana, which is absolutely exploding across our world. And a lot of people think it's marijuana. You have no idea. And I bring this book on alcohol. So I bring those 3 books to kids. And I have other books that I talk about. You're going to get a curriculum. Your school's going to teach you about these other books. Go to Drug Free World. I play the They Lied video, you know, the one I stole from The Truth About Drugs.
Yeah.
I play that now. And I had this girl come up to me and she goes, "You said you had other booklets." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you have a booklet on heroin?" She's in the 7th grade.
What age?
Said, yeah.
How old was that?
12, 13. I said, "Yeah, I have a booklet on heroin." I went in my laptop bag and I took the whole box out, which has 13, 14 booklets in it, and I gave it to her. And she opened it up and she took the heroin booklet out, right? And I said, "Just take the whole box. You don't need to just take the heroin." And she holds heroin up and she says, "No, I just need this one." So I know what's going on. I know why. Somebody she loves is struggling with heroin. And I said, "You know, who is it?" She starts crying. I said, "Come on, sweetheart, it's between you and me. I mean, you heard my story." She said, "It's her father." Well, that night we were doing a parent night. And I said to her, "Why don't you bring your father to the parent night?" She said, "No, he'll never go." I said, "Take the booklet home, sit down, ask your mom to come. You got any brothers or sisters?" "Yeah, little brother." So mom, little brother, little sister end up coming that night, and they're sitting there, and I catch her eye, and I see that the guy's not there, and she puts her head down, she starts crying. I guess he didn't come, right? About halfway through my presentation, they had left a note on the kitchen table of where they were going to learn about drugs. He came to the school. After I talked to the parents that night, after the end of my presentation, he came up to me and he said, "My daughter said you know how to get people help." When I got that guy help, that man right now, his daughter has graduated high school. She's in college. That man right now is president of his son's school because the son was younger. He's president of the school's PTA group.
Wow.
He's clean and sober. A heroin booklet handed to a 7th grader brought a man to freedom from addiction and restored a family. I could sit here for 2 hours telling you story after story after story. A girl came up to me in Walmart with her mother, and she stopped me and she says, "You're Michael, right?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, she turns to her mother and says, "You're the reason I've never done drugs." Tells her mother that in the store at Walmart, in the middle of the store at Walmart. So bawling my eyes out, crying like a little baby. I'm like, "What? The reason what? What do you mean?" Listen, I have passion and I have unbridled energy. And I have a purpose in my life and I'm confronting evil. But I'm telling you right now, Truth About Drugs, Foundation for a Drug-Free World, is the tool that I'm using to continue the education and to penetrate. Now, 49 out of 50 states in America has shut their school doors for the next, 4 months till the fall school year, right? We've had kids out of school for 2 months. Suicides up, calls for suicides up. Telemedicine is up all across the country. Psychs are just writing antidepressant and anti-anxiety medication to any kid whose parent gets on a screen and says, "My kid's depressed because they're out of school." There are no problems, psych drugs, right? We have a massive problem. Alcohol use is up, marijuana use is up, domestic violence is up, kids are struggling, and use is going up. Every administrator is in school right now because they're coordinating distance learning and distribution of food. A lot of kids don't eat if they don't go to school. So literally over 30 states across the United States of America are sending out food to children on buses. They're delivering food to people's houses, right? So they could deliver Drug-Free World booklets to these kids' houses. If they can't, then they could send a digital link to every kid. So I decided just the other day, I'm not waiting anymore. The 49 states have shut down. I was hoping a couple of schools were going to open up in May. They're not going to open up. So fine, I'm going to go to them. I'm getting in my tour bus. I'm hitting the road on Monday. I'm driving to 26 states across the country, and I'm going to see between 12 and 1,600 schools. And if they don't take the booklets because they can't distribute the booklets to kids, I'm going to give them the digital links to Drug Free World so they can educate their kids and their families and their communities about drugs for the rest of the school year in the summertime. And then I'm getting all their information because we're going to go back to those schools this fall and deliver a powerful steered straight presentation.
So you're going to hit the road for how long? How long are you going to hit the road for?
I only have 60 days left before school would normally be out for summer. So I have 60 days. But then I got all summer. I go to prisons all over the country. So I'm going to do about 150 prisons this summer.
Basically, you don't stop ever other than the 3 hours of sleep here and there.
Yeah, stop. I'll stop when I'm dead. And even then, I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to live my life so my life outlives me. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And that's how this dynamic can make that happen. And the more I just did my purification, it was unbelievable. It just opened so many things to me, man. I'm going to change the world. Hey, I need to get over to London in July, and we do a powerful presentation to people and show people how to get out there with this material.
I was going to ask, like, anyone that's watching, if they're as inspired as I am right now, and they want to, like, I don't know, get involved in drug education, maybe in their own area, become a lecturer. Do you have a network of people? Can people reach out to you and, like, be under your umbrella? Because you obviously know the ropes. You've done it so much. I'm sure you can teach people a lot.
Oh, yeah. And they don't need to come on. Like, I have a nonprofit organization. They don't need to come under me. I mean, they could just work with the IAS and the Foundation for a Drug-Free World. And they could just work with they don't even have to be a Scientologist. You know what I mean? None of my speakers are Scientologists. There are 16 of them. I'm a Scientologist. I'm a Christian and a Scientologist. And they don't have to be involved. This has nothing to do with religion whatsoever. Nothing. Yeah. No religion. Not Scientology, not Christianity, not enough. It's just fact-based information on drugs. But the selfless people that are involved in that religion pay for it and fund it. So anyone can get involved. Listen, if you don't want to get involved, that means you must want to see kids on drugs. We can't have kids on drugs. We can't have people on drugs. But the only way we're going to stop people from being on drugs is to get them not to start in the first place. We got to reach the kids. So they could come and work with me, but they don't have to. They could just work with Drug Free World. If they want to know good ideas about how to get it out there, then I'm your guy. I'm your guy.
And lastly, to what would you say is like I don't know if you can do this in one line of advice, but you mentioned earlier that on lockdown, you know, drug use is up, suicide is up. Obviously, mental health is a huge problem for people that are stuck at home right now. Having been there yourself, having been on drugs yourself, what would you say to the people who are at home consuming, whether it's alcohol, marijuana, or drugs right now? What's a piece of practical advice that they can use?
So I don't know, I sent you a picture of the tour bus, right? That I'm going to drive around. It's a big RV. It's got Drug Free World stickers all over and everything. Right? When I'm going to go do 20 to 30 schools a day and visit them on the way, at night in America, Walmart lets RV owners park in their parking lot, right? So anywhere across the country, if you got an RV, you can park in a Walmart parking lot, right? There's no water or electricity there, but you can park in a Walmart parking lot, right? Because Walmart knows you're going to come in and buy some stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah. So they want to put you in your parking lot. So in the evening, I put awning down on my RV, I put tables out and a little flag up and a little thing up, and I have Drug Free World booklets, and I sit there in a chair. I have a big green screen set up because I record people's stories. People should go to recoveryarmy.com, recoveryarmy.com, and they can see amazing videos that I've shot all over the country of people who have overcome addiction, right? And so I have the green screen set up, and sometimes people come over. I mean, they look like, what are you, some sort of rock star or something? I'm like, hell no, look at this face. Right? So I'll say, I'm trying to save the world, man. I'm trying to keep people off drugs. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so great. I can have these? You're giving these away? I shot 4 documentary movies. I have them on DVD. Most people don't have DVD players anymore, but I have them on DVD and I give them away. Here, learn about this. Learn a little bit more about addiction. And everywhere I go, I've never had it happen. I've never had it not happen once. The guy will go, I'm in recovery. The woman said, man, I used to be a heroin addict. The man will say, man, I used to be a meth addict. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to capture people's stories also. If you want to sit right here, I'll record your story, sign this release form so I can edit it and use it. But if you want to give hope to other people, I'll share your story. They're like, really? And if it's a girl, they'll be like, oh, no, I have no makeup on or anything. I'm like, all right, whatever. But anyway, they'll come back with makeup on. I had a girl knock on my door in the Walmart parking lot at 2 a.m. in the morning and said, you said I could tell my story, but you're leaving tomorrow. Could I tell it now? I brought the cameras out, the lighting out. It's 2 a.m. in the middle of Walmart, and I'm filming this girl's story. It's bananas, right? But guess what? That's what I have to do. That's what I have to do, because that girl's story is going to impact some other girl somewhere. I don't know who she's going to impact. I might never know who she's going to impact, but it's going to impact someone. So recoveryarmy.com, share those stories with people. But anyway, you have to get involved, and you can get involved. On a lockdown, how can you get involved? So we're coming out of the
well,
lockdown.
on a lockdown, not so much how can you get involved, but what advice would you give to someone that is a victim of addiction? What advice would you give to someone who's struggling with that and currently taking drugs?
All right, whether it's illicit drugs or alcohol or pharmaceutical drugs, it's all got bad outcomes if it's abused and misused, right? And illicit drugs got bad outcomes no matter what. Alcohol's got bad outcomes. So here's the situation. Here's the real issue. They're all chemicals: alcohol, prescription drugs, illicit drugs, and there's no such thing as a chemical solution to a spiritual problem. You can't solve a spiritual problem with a chemical. It's absolutely impossible, right? Maybe, I'm not a doctor, like I said, so I never give medical advice. I'm personally against medication and psych drugs and mood altering drugs and mood stabilizers, but I don't tell other people what to do. But no matter what medication you might be on, it's not supposed to be for life. It's not supposed to be for long term. So maybe if you're on a medication, fine, it's okay, you're on a medication, but what is the medication doing for you? And is the goal to stay on the medication the rest of your life, or is to get off the medication? I'm not talking about diabetes, I'm not talking about heart medication, I'm talking about head medication. You don't need to be on head medication, okay, for long periods of time. So you need to wean off in the right way. If it's a benzodiazepine, you don't need to stop because it's deadly. You need people in your life. Listen, my medicine is music. Music is my medicine. It's weird because I listen to like Eminem, and then I listen to like Sam Smith, and then I listen to Frank Sinatra, and then I listen to Metallica. So I like all music. All music, from rap to classical to opera to class, it doesn't matter. Music is my medicine. And then motivational videos. I sit here while I'm researching, and I have a computer over here, and all it does is it plays motivational videos from YouTube. You cannot have positive stuff going in your ear every single day and have it not affect you. You'll pick up little lines. I wrote this down this morning. I was listening to one. God will not strengthen you for a battle he did not call you to fight. God will not strengthen you for a battle he did not call you to fight. Les Brown said this in a video this morning. I pick up these lines and I'm able to use them all, and then I use them in my life. There's an old expression by a motivational speaker named Zig Ziglar. He said, garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage in, you get garbage out. So if you're listening to negative stuff, if you're watching the news, listen, I don't watch the news. I haven't seen any more briefings on this stupid thing. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch any of it. It's all negative. It's all bad. 90% of it's all lies.
You know what?
I feed. Listen, Church of Scientology has got so many positive things that you can do to enhance your life. You don't like it, there's only two, or you don't want to do it, there's only two reasons why you don't want to do it. You have bad data or you have no data. You either don't know what it is, or you've heard negative things about it from someone who doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
Look at it. Look at it. If it's nothing more than Dianetics, if it's nothing more than the way to happiness, if it's nothing more than drug-free world, look at it. So I get hated on because I'm a self-professed Scientologist. I have people that don't follow me anymore, or unfriended me, or attacked me because I'm a Scientologist. I don't care. I don't care. I was a junkie. I was a gang member. I was a convict. I get attacked for my Christian faith more than anything, to tell you the truth. Okay. So it doesn't matter. I share it with everyone, planting little seeds. If you're struggling through this lockdown, if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if you're worried about the future, worry does nothing. Worry, it does absolutely nothing. Okay. So just enhance your life. Feed your mind with positive things. YouTube is free. You can sit there for hours and hours and hours, and you can watch motivational video after motivational video. If you want one of the best ones that's out there, it's Mulligan Brothers. I know Irish. I'm not, okay, all right. Yeah. Mulligan Brothers. They have so many positive motivational videos, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Gary Vanderchuck. You have to like the F-bomb to watch that. Les Brown, Grant Cardone. The guy's a genius. Grant Cardone is a genius, okay? And he will motivate you. That's what it's all about. Stop looking at the downside of this. Man, this is not, we will survive. This will pass. You need to embrace your life and find your purpose in your life. How you do that is you feed positive things into your life. There's no such thing as a chemical solution to a spiritual problem.
You could just listen to Michael DeLeon on 24-hour repeat. That should be your medicine. That's great advice. So there's no chemical solution to a spiritual problem. Music, constant positive information. That's great practical advice for what people can do right now. Michael, I don't know how to thank you enough for what you're doing, for what you have done for the last 10 to 15 years. I hope the people watching appreciate it as much as I do and are inspired by it. I actually, as you're speaking now, I want to see what I can do to help you get your message out there, whether it's pushing your documentaries, or maybe we can talk after about getting your documentaries on online digital. But I will help you. You said recoveryarmy.com. So guys, check out that website, recoveryarmy.com.
And Steered Straight. SteeredStraight.org. SteeredStraight.org is like the source for everything. And a lot of our stuff is right there. Videos are right there. I have a curriculum called Success for Teens. If you've got a teenager, you should download that. It's 8 chapters about making their dreams come true. And then on Facebook, I have 2 pages, Michael DeLeon and Michael Reagan DeLeon. Please follow me on Facebook. And, give me some advice, share what I'm trying to do with people. I need help, I need prayers, and I need motivation.
Okay, guys, pray for Michael DeLeon. Follow him on Facebook. You don't need motivation, but go and support him and help him out. This guy is the authority on the subject of drugs and drug rehabilitation. Michael, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I love you so much, man, and I can't wait to meet in person.
See you soon. Hopefully July. I got to come to the UK.
Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
All right, chap.
See you, bro.